Let's take you here now. The Department of Basic Education will host an urgent media briefing this morning. This is on the progress of the National Senior Certificate exams, which commenced a week ago. The department says while the exams went relatively well, there are concerns that have emerged, and these pose a threat to the running of the national examinations. It says the department's Director General, Mathanzima Mweli, convened a meeting with provincial heads of departments as well as professional bodies. Let's take you there live.
Be prevented from writing exams for any reason whatsoever. An appeal to broader civil society, different formations in our civil society, SANCO in particular, as the leading formation when it comes to broader civil society, and different other formations from, civil society leadership, that whilst we understand their dissatisfaction, we understand their plight about service delivery issues, and in the main, the issues that they are concerned about are indeed legitimate, and some of them should have been dealt with long ago. We want to make a special plea to the South African nation, to the South African public, to our communities, to broader civil society, to allow our young people to have access to exam centers to go and write their examinations, because they've been preparing for this for 12 to 13 years. Just imagine, the trauma that brings to these young people. They've already gone through COVID, which had its own trauma for the past 2 years, ESCOM load shedding, which had its own trauma on them. Now, at the moment of going to write the exams, being denied that opportunity to write the exams. So we want to make a special plea once more to the South African public to help us to protect the exams, to help us to ensure that our young people do not miss this opportunity that they most deserve and desperately need to sit for their final year exams. So we've also picked up that there are some parents and some schools that denied learners from writing exams because some of them felt pregnant and some of them had not paid school fee. Again, this is unlawful. Our policies are very clear on these matters. The issue of school fees should be dealt with by parents or guardian. No learner should be prevented from writing exams because of having not paid school fees, or maybe the school fees are not paid. So we really want to appeal to parents, to appeal to school principals, to appeal to community members that they should please report to us of any incident of this nature, so that our intervention is timely to secure the opportunity for these young people to write exams. The last point that I want to touch is that parents, communities, and all schools are requested to make alternative arrangements for learners to stay close to the schools where they are writing exams, so that they are not locked out because of overnight rain or flooding. The rains that we experience of now late are irregular, are unprecedented. So we want to make a special plea to parents, to communities, to school principals and teachers to work together to make alternative arrangements for learners to have accommodation close to the school where they'll be writing exams so that if you experience overnight heavy rains and flooding, they are not locked out of the examination center. Once more, we want to thank our nation and our public, and thank our teachers, school principals, our officials, particularly exam officials, who've been spending sleepless nights to make sure that our exams proceed unhindered. And I must say, we are concerned about the planned public service strike, but we have worked with provinces on a contingency plan to make sure that when the public service strike happens, the exams should still proceed unhindered. I am now going to invite Dr. Rufus Polia to come and take us through the technical report and just share with the nation on the week that was and the week lying ahead. Dr. Polia.
Thank you, DG, and good morning to the South African nation. Good morning to all our media colleagues present this morning. And let me also reiterate the appreciation of our Director General, firstly to our parents, our learners, and all key stakeholders that continue to support us in the implementation of this very large enterprise, the 2022 National Senior Certificate Examination. Let me also express my appreciation to our media colleagues for your support, not just in the writing of the exam, but throughout the year in terms of our preparation and getting us to this point. My purpose this morning, as outlined by the DG, is to provide you a more detailed account of how the administration of the examination has proceeded over the last few days. And this would be the outline of my presentation. But let me just say that this examination commenced on the 25th of October, and we've now gone through 7 days of a 30-day examination period. And just to highlight once again, this is possibly one of the largest examinations being administered by the Department of Basic Education. We have a total of 921,879 candidates writing this examination. And this examination, like all other examinations, comprises of part-time and full-time candidates. We have 753,964 full-time candidates and 167,915 part-time candidates. Now, in terms of the examination, we track this examination not just on a question paper by question paper basis in terms of as it is written, but we track it on an hourly basis. And just to give you a more detailed account, 71 of the 220 question papers have been written. When I talk about 220 question papers, I'm talking about the sum total of all the examination question papers that will be written by all candidates who take subjects in different combinations. So we have completed 32% of the examination. Now, it may appear as if in the first 7 days we have completed 1/3 of the exam, and the only reason that we have gone through such a large percentage in the first week is that we have a number of non-official languages, and these are taken by learners who want to take a non-official language, and these in the main would be your foreign languages. And we have paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3. So most of these are complete, and that constitutes almost 60 of the 71 papers that have been written already. Now, as pointed out by our Director General, that the exams are moving extremely well. except for load shedding, which we spoke about extensively in our last media briefing. But I think the main concern at the moment, as our DG has highlighted, is protest action. And I cannot emphasize the negativity that is associated with any protest action. Learners that have gone through 13 years of learning, waiting anxiously, having prepared thoroughly to write an exam, and then to be faced with the anxiety and tension on the morning of an examination that you may not be able to write the exam simply because of an activity and action instigated by members of the community in which our learners are located. And I must say that for possibly each of the last 5 days, we've had protest action in at least one of the provinces. Northwest, Northern Cape, Gauteng have, to some large extent, we've had these protest actions occurring. Now, in terms of storms and storm damage, we've been looking very closely at KZN and Eastern Cape. From previous practice, these are our two provinces where flooding normally occurs. But given the change in our weather patterns, we've had storm damage, in fact, in the Northern Cape, and we had storms in the Northwest province. And I'll tell you a little more about that. Now, in an examination of this magnitude, what is critical is to monitor and report. As indicated, our exam is written across almost more than 7,000 examination centers, and we need to collect information from each of these centers on a daily basis to know exactly what is happening in each of these centers. We have daily reporting moving from our schools, exam centers, where the exam is being written, to our district offices, where it gets consolidated, and from that point, it gets to the 9 provincial offices, where it gets further consolidated and then reported to the national department. Now, we have set a minimum threshold of at least 70% of our exam centers must be monitored on a daily basis. And our provincial departments have pulled out all stops to make sure that they utilize subject advisors, district officials, provincial officials to monitor every examination to make sure that every examination follows the prescribed protocol. Exam credibility is of paramount importance. I cannot emphasize the effort, the energy that goes into making sure that all our exams are credible, because that determines the currency, that determines the integrity of our examinations. DBE, through the efforts of our Director General, have deployed 85 monitors. And this is besides the monitoring that is initiated by our provincial departments. And I must say that our provincial departments have resorted to electronic modes and modalities of monitoring. So online reporting helps us to have real-time information in terms of what's happening across all centers where exams are written. We have WhatsApp chat groups, so this allows for regular exchange of information. The group that manages exam across the 9 provinces together with the DBE constitutes our exam top management, and we meet regularly. The Director General has indicated already, has met with the heads of department on Friday, and he'll continue to meet with them so that we exchange information and identify areas that we need to give attention to. The Director General also had a meeting with our teacher union leadership, our school governing body associations, and professional bodies. So you will get a sense that running an exam requires all hands on deck. And I must say we have the support of all our key role players and stakeholders. Now, looking at what has transpired in this week that has gone past. This is week 2. Week 1 was when we wrote computer applications technology and information technology. And these are the question papers that have been written already. And some of our major papers have been written in terms of English and Afrikaans, economics, history. Mathematics paper 1 was written. And I must say that we've had positive responses coming from our schools, coming from our key institutions regarding mathematics paper 1. And mathematics paper 2 will be written tomorrow. Now, here is the detail, and we provided you with some of these details regarding computer applications technology. And remember, our biggest concern with computer applications technology was the issue of load shedding. And I must say there was a lot of anxiety on the eve of the writing of computer applications technology. We were on stage 4 load shedding. And computer applications technology requires electricity. That then dropped to stage 3 load shedding. But I must say that the exam proceeded reasonably well, and that's the breakdown of all the centers where there were problems. But I must say that all our learners were able to write the examination, and here I provide you with a summary of the number of centers that were affected by load shedding. Now, affected does not mean they did not write. It simply means they had to start early or they started late, which also is certainly not the best condition, because they should start at the time that it has been scheduled. So 119 centers were affected by load shedding, and 3 centers were affected by technical issues. And when I say technical issues, it simply means there may have been a problem with the computers that were used. There may have been a problem during the saving of the data. So those are technical and not related to the load shedding. In the case of IT, which is information technology, we had 2 centers that were affected by load shedding, but here again, all learners were able to write the exam. In total, the number of learners that were impacted in some way by load shedding was 3,956. But as we mentioned last week, there are only 14 learners coming from computer applications technology that will have to rewrite the paper. And that was because of load shedding when they switched to the generator that resulted in a power surge, and that damaged the computers that they were using. So these are the 14 that will rewrite. Now, what I will now do very quickly is to give you a day-by-day account in terms of what transpired. On Monday, as our DG mentioned, we had English Home Language, English First Additional Language, and English Second Additional Language, which is taken by almost 90% of our learners. And we had a reasonably good run, but the following issues were reported. And the first incident is unfortunate, which our DG has alluded to. One of our candidates who was pregnant was not allowed to write English file paper 1, and this is certainly against our policy. And I'm hoping that this message will get across to all our parents, to all our school principals. Do not disallow learners simply because they may be pregnant. Our policies are absolutely clear on this matter. Now, very interesting that our examinations will accommodate learners wherever they are based on the validity of the reason. And we had candidates from KZN, Mpumalanga, and Northern Cape that wrote the examination in hospitals. And this would imply that either the morning or the night before, learners would have taken ill and had to be admitted to hospital, and our exam systems in the province would have kicked in, created a secure and a conducive environment in the hospital for our candidates to write. So we have a very adaptable and versatile system, and it also indicates to the fact that we are going the extra mile to make sure that every learner is given an opportunity to write the exam. But item C is certainly the unfortunate one, and that's possibly the main reason for our technical briefing this morning. In the Impindle area in Umgungundlovu district, there was a community protest. And the South African police services had to be called in to escort our officials to school, to get the question papers to the school, and we are appreciative for the support from the South African police services that have allowed us to administer the examination in these schools in this particular area. But here again, I think we need to try and place ourselves in the predicament of these learners, not knowing whether you're going to be able to write this exam or not. And I think this is the point that we want to stress to our communities. Do not use our learners to achieve your own objectives. Candidates writing at the wrong level, this always happens simply because you have English offered at home language, first additional and second additional language, and despite the fact that we emphasize to learners that they must make sure that the paper they receive is at the right level, some of our learners, and I assume it's the stress of the examination, that they will go ahead and write a paper at the wrong level. But I can just assure our candidates out there that may have committed such an error that we do have a dispensation in conjunction with the Quality Assurance Council to accommodate learners that may have written a paper on the wrong level. On Tuesday, economics, another very important paper, was written. And here again, in Northwest, in one of our districts, we had service delivery protest. Now look at the number of learners that were affected. 459 candidates thrown into quandary on the morning that they are writing the examination. But here again, through the intervention of the district and our SAPS, the learners were able to write, but they started late, and whenever learners start late, we compensate them for the lost time. There was also the unfortunate incident which our Director General has mentioned in Pandamfundo Secondary in the Etwatwa area in Gauteng, where 53 of our candidates, now this is highly, highly unfortunate, 53 of the candidates could not write the examination. Now, can you imagine these 53 candidates being not being given the opportunity of writing an examination that they have prepared for? But nonetheless, we are looking into this situation, and we would see how best these learners could be accommodated. We also had candidates admitted to hospital in the Northern Cape. And in the Northern Cape, we also had one candidate who broke his arm. And here again, our exam processes kicked in, and we were able to very quickly appoint a scribe. And a scribe is simply somebody that writes on behalf of the learner. So the learner reads, and the learner then orally communicates the answer to the scribe, and the scribe will then write the answer. So these are some of the accommodation options that we have to cater for our learners. In an examination of this magnitude, one expects that learners will take their chances and walk into the exam room with crib notes, some of them even with cell phones. Now, cell phone technology is used as a source of information. And I want to reiterate, and I'm hoping that our parents out there and our learners out there, please do not expose yourself to the risk of walking into an exam room with your cell phone. The mere fact that you are in possession of a cell phone is regarded as a major breach of security, and unfortunately, you will have to face the penalty. So parents, please warn your sons and daughters that are writing the examination tomorrow. And I'm appealing to learners. Sometimes you just walk into the exam room not realizing that you may have the cell phone in your pocket. Our invigilators are absolutely emphatic. They will reiterate these instructions at every examination session so that learners do not unintentionally walk into the exam room with their cell phones. In the case of Afrikaans, we wrote Afrikaans paper 1 on Wednesday, and here again Afrikaans is offered at 3 levels: home language, first additional and second additional. And here again the exam proceeded without any serious incident, but here again we were presented with Vosloorus this time in Gauteng with service delivery protest. And again, all candidates were able to write. And you see, the point that we want to stress is that the anxiety, the unsettlement faced by these candidates can in no way be measured or evaluated. And because it cannot be measured in terms of the trauma, it cannot be compensated. So as much as we may say learners have written the examination, but the social derailment to the learner is what the learner cannot be in any way compensated. We also had a candidate found in possession of cell phone and crib notes. Now remember, in an exam of this magnitude, if you have the odd cell phone crib notes, it's expected. And what I can say is that when these irregularities, as we call them, are detected, it confirms that we have a vigilant system. It confirms that our invigilators are looking closely at our learners as they write the exam. And therefore, again, I'm sounding a word of caution to our learners. Our invigilators will be observing you every moment. So don't be found wanting. There was also an unfortunate incident of special answer books in the case of German, which should have been used in the examination. And this is a fault on our part, and we take responsibility for that. But the learners were able to write the examination on a normal answer book. We will look at these 83 candidates and make sure that by virtue of the fact that they did not have the correct answer book, they were not disadvantaged. And if they were disadvantaged, we have mechanisms to compensate them. And we will make sure that these kinds of errors do not occur. And then on Thursday, history, another very important paper. And here we had crib notes, and crib notes again in the provinces that are listed there. And again, we had heavy rains in the Northern Cape. In fact, it contributed to a damage of the school, but nonetheless, the examination proceeded. I think when it comes to, nature, I mean, that's certainly beyond our control, and that we can, not be disappointed about, to the degree that we're disappointed about community protests that are instigated by our very own. In the Western Cape, one candidate arrived an hour late. Now we have a clear ruling that if you arrive an hour late, and the reason I'm emphasizing this is that I'm hoping that our learners out there and our parents are listening, is that if you arrive an hour late, you will not be allowed to enter the exam room, neither will you be allowed to write the exam. Simply because when a learner enters the exam room, learners can leave after the first hour. So one then assumes that if you come in after an hour, you could have had contact with learners that would have left the exam room, and that constitutes a compromise. Again, we had one case of possession of cell phone. Engineering, graphics and design, another important subject, was written on Thursday afternoon. Exam proceeded well, except for crib notes and cell phones in the Eastern Cape. And then came the all-important subject on Friday morning, mathematics, mathematical literacy, and technical maths. Here again, candidates were found in possession of crib notes and cell phones. And C is again extremely unfortunate, and this is the point we want to emphasize. A principal did not allow one of the learners coming from an independent school to write the examination in the Free State simply because of non-payment of school fees. We want to stress this point. Payment of school fees is an issue between the parent and the school. No learner should be prevented from writing an examination because of the non-payment of school fees. And let me say that as a department, action will be taken against that particular school with regard to their action of preventing a learner from writing the examination. We had flooding in Northwest in the Kuma informal settlement, and here again our support systems kicked in and all candidates were able to write the examination. 3 candidates unfortunately took ill during the writing of the exam. Now, if you take ill during the writing of the exam and you cannot finish the paper, there's unfortunately nothing we can do. The only dispensation available is for the candidates to go with the rewrite opportunity in June. Again, we had candidates writing in hospital in the Northern Cape. G is also another unfortunate incident. While the exam was in progress in the Northern Cape, we had over 180 parents storming the school simply because they wanted a particular learner suspended. And obviously that created pandemonium in the school, and our poor learners that were writing would have been traumatized, but together with the district and the senior management team at the school, order was restored and the exam proceeded normally. Now, in an examination of this nature, we also have legal matters. I mean, the South African public is fully aware of their rights, and we had one incident, and in this case, one school in the Western Cape, an independent school, was found to have violated our protocols in the writing of the examination. We then withdrew the facility in terms of them having to administer the exam. And that's how serious we are about the adherence to our protocols. And this is a warning to all schools. If you do not follow the protocols, you will then lose the opportunity of administering the exam. So what we then do, we always make sure that our learners are accommodated. And the learners were then moved to a neighboring school. The owner of the school then approached the court. But we then managed to settle this matter. And there's been an interim agreement that we've concluded with the school where we will allow them to write the examination, but on strict terms, where the provincial department will appoint invigilators. We'll have a monitor on site for every examination. Question papers will not be stored, but will be delivered to this particular school. And the principal will continue to serve as an invigilator, but under the direct eye of an appointed invigilator. So that was week 2 of the examination. And again, from my account, you would have realized that the exam has gone reasonably well. Looking at over 800,000 candidates writing across all of these centers, and if you look at the number of invigilators and officials, and the fact that some of our officials have to get up as early as 3 o'clock in the morning to get question papers to schools on time. So it's a mammoth operation. So the fact that 7 days have gone well is a credit. But I want to hasten to say that it's still early days. We still have 23 days to go, and we are still doing the best we can to make sure that week 3 goes well, and tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, Maths Paper 2, Maths Literacy Paper 2, and Technical Maths Paper 2 will be written. And this is an important examination. Not that other question papers are not important. We have History Paper 2, Economics Paper 2, African Languages, a number of them that are written, Computer Applications Technology, Information Technology Paper 2, so that will complete our CAT and IT, Religion Studies Paper 1, Marine Sciences Paper 1, Physical Science Paper 1, and Technical Sciences will be written on Friday. I just thought I will give you a quick snapshot of what is happening on the other front while the writing is taking place. Now remember, this is a sequential process. And in order for us to ensure that on the 20th of January, all learners get their results, we have a very tight schedule in terms of activities that must be run in accordance with the plan. So we've had CAT and IT being written, and now starts what we call the marking standardization meetings. The marking standardization meetings were previously referred to as memo discussions, where you discuss the marking guideline. Now, what is very important about this process is that we allow our chief markers and internal moderators from the province to get live scripts that have been written, to pre-mark them, and to see how learners are performing. What are the kind of responses? So at this meeting, and we have 160 of these meetings which are being convened from these very offices here at the Department of Basic Education. We're following a hybrid model this year, which simply means that our provincial officials will connect virtually, but our DBE officials, our exam panels, together with the Umalusi moderators, will be based here in Pretoria. And what happens is that there's a robust debate and discussion on what are the possible answers to every question. This also gives all our chief examiners or our chief markers and moderators to interrogate the question, because the validity, the interpretation of the question can only be fully understood after it's written and after you see how learners respond. So I want to assure our learners and our parents out there that this particular process will ensure that where there may have been an interpretation that may be different, your son or daughter will be accommodated. So the marking guideline accommodates various responses coming from various experts. But this is done under the watchful eye of the Quality Assurance Council, Umalusi, who will finally approve that an alternative option is in fact correct. And we're not just boosting the guideline, just for the purpose of doing such an exercise. Associated with this exercise comes a training of our chief markers and internal moderators. So day 1, finalization of the marking guideline. Day 2, these chief markers and internal moderators, they go through a rigorous process of training. And we train them on live scripts, and we look at how do they mark, what are the deviations, are they able to comply with a tolerance range. And only if these chief markers and internal moderators can comply with the strict tolerances that we provide will they be authorized. So authorization, in fact, certifies these chief markers and internal moderators to go and run this exercise of marking in the province. So this is how we ensure quality in the marking process. Now, these are the meetings that are taking place at the moment. English Home Language, FAL and SAL is currently taking place. CAT and IT just completed over the weekend. And during the course of the week, we will be then interrogating the marking guidelines for those subjects listed. And the last meeting will take place on the 10th of December so that our marking can start. So this takes me to the conclusion, and in summary, I want to say the examination is proceeding well. And as a nation, let us hold on firmly to a credible and an examination of integrity. We need the support of all parents, all learners, all teachers, all officials. The entire South African public is required in making sure that we maintain this credibility, which is so important. Let's continue to ensure that our learners write under the most conducive environment. Let us not derail our learners in any way. We are dealing with the inclement weather, and we are in touch with the South African Weather Services that will be assisting us with up-to-date weather forecasts so that we can prepare if there's anything untoward. I must say that we have excellent support from our NatJoc, which is the National Joint Operations Committee, and the Provincial Joint Operation Committee, and we're able to draw on their services at short notice to assist us, particularly with protest actions and with issues of inclement weather. My final appeal to all our learners: do not waste your time trying to elicit information relating to the question paper to be written. You are just wasting valuable time. Use the limited time that you have available to preparing for the examination rather than trying to locate that question paper. And the penalties, if you are caught in possession of an examination question paper, are too ghastly to contemplate. It's going to ruin your entire future as a student. So do not even attempt to venture into that direction. To our parents and members of the public, we are dependent on you to be our eyes and ears wherever you are. If you have any information that may appear suspicious, remember our hotline number, 069 335 2818. It's a 24/7 hotline number, and you can call us at any time, and we promise we will respond. In conclusion, our sincere appreciation to our parents, teacher unions, teachers, officials, school governing bodies, professional bodies, and all other partners for their support in bringing us this point to the 2022 October-November examination. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, DG. Thank you so much, Dr. Polia, the Chief Director for Examination.
Okay, we come out of that press briefing there. That was, of course, Rufus Polia, who is the Chief Director of National Assessment and Public Examination at the Department of Education.